a Proxmark 3. You can use this to copy hotel keys. It'll read passports.
What can that do that the flipper cannot do?
This is a hack RF. It can send and receive ADS-B, which is the airplanes, like when they go by, they have a beacon that they send, obviously, to tell air traffic control where they are, where they're positioned.
So this is basically a listening device.
It's a listening and a transmitting device.
For somebody like me that has no idea what the hell you're actually talking about, what would you be monitoring with this?
Yeah, this phone is an Obelisk One. It's by an Obsidian Intelligence Group, and it's a hardened Android phone. I think that Ryan Montgomery popularized this. Mine doesn't have a lot of the funny antennas on top of it, but this has been part of my everyday carry since it came out. Mostly what I use it for, though, is friends that live in condominiums or apartment buildings that have fobs. I just copy them so I can break into their houses with permission, of course. The other thing it'll do is it'll also write them. So usually apartment complexes and condo associations will charge like $30 to $100 just to have extras. But I can just make extras for my friends and just subvert the whole process. So it's a good thing. This is a Proxmark 3. It's a more of a grown-up version of the flipper, but it deals with near-field communication, RFID devices or chips. It has Bluetooth power. I think is it on here? Yeah. So this one, I have the battery attachment that goes onto it, but you can use this to copy hotel keys. It'll read passports. You can use it to pretty much anything. I said the same fobs, apartment fobs that the flipper can access, but this is more of a grown-up version of the flipper. It just has a lot more functionality and extensibility than the flipper does. It's not as versatile.
What can that do that the flipper cannot do?
So I don't think, like for instance, the passport documents and stuff, I don't think that the flipper can do that. There may be a plugin or something that's some sort of firmware modification, but as far as I know, it doesn't support that. But this, I said, pretty much any type of wireless like access mechanism. The Proxmark, for a long time, this was the gold standard for all the NFC type. Said copying, writing, dumping. It all came from. This was like the device that most of us hackers used in order to do those types of attacks. But it said it doesn't. It lacks the IR capability and stuff that the flipper has. I also have this is a hack RF. I don't know if Ryan had the Portapack add-on onto it, but this is just a software-defined radio. I think I have some amount of power. I forgot which firmware I'm running on this one too, but this interface, like this, the hack RF itself, this is kind of an add-on that bolts into it, and it has another case. But when you buy the Portapack, then you kind of use this case and this interface. But it does everything from, I said, it can send and receive ADS-B, which is the airplanes, like when they go by, they have a beacon that they send, obviously, to tell air traffic control where they are, where they're positioned. But with a strong enough antenna, you can broadcast those types of signals as well. This is a telescopic antenna, but I don't think here within the studio we're going to have enough juice to do anything interesting with it. But this, I said, if you just think of this like an AM/FM radio for all wireless bands, you could actually listen to AM and FM radio on this if you want, but you could tune to a TV, the analog television signals, not digital anymore. I guess you could technically if you had a decoder, but the the firmware that's in the Portapack is different than the SDR software defined radio itself is extensible like programmatically through like you can use new radio. You can write custom applications that basically interface with this SDR and use it to decode. I said P25, which is trunk to radio that police and fire and stuff use. It's encoded. POXAG, which is, remember the old school pagers. Sometimes restaurants use those to keep track of where orders are and
So this is basically a listening device.
It's a listening and a transmitting device, so it does both.
What would you transmit?
Yeah, you could transmit those signals too. Like I could send a pager message. I could send. I could hook it up to a microphone and I could transmit. I could do ham radio off of this if I wanted to. You need a stronger antenna and more power, obviously, but yeah, I mean it's determined. I said both for listening and for transmission. Some of them are a bit like the RTL SDR is just built. It's more of a dongle and it's built just for receiving. But the hack RF is used for both. But anything that goes over that you can't see is all wireless. Like all that technology is facilitated by some version of the electromagnetic spectrum. I mean, even infrared is just not visible light, but it's the same. It's that same kind of.
And this picks all of that up.
Yeah, it's got a very wide spectrum of frequencies that it can basically tune to. This one down here is, I forgot what, this is a spectrum analyzer, but, and this is just a battery operated one, but you can see it's just got like, I don't know where the camera would be, but you could tune that to, like I said, same thing, tune it to a radio frequency. You can see where the peaks would be. But that device is just all in one to just monitor frequencies.
So, I mean, for somebody like me that has no idea what the hell you're actually talking about, what would you be monitoring with this and why?
Well, let's say you had a wireless protocol that is existing like an off public band, like this, the FCC, like in our case, which is our governing body of Federal Communications Commission or whatever, they have certain bands of frequencies that they've allocated for public use. So like the 900 megahertz band, like 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, these are the things that wireless technologies exist on. But let's say there was a command and control channel that was happening in some low bandwidth frequency, let's say like 800 megahertz range or something, and I wanted to attune to that and pull out like the data, like what was going over it, analyze what type of data that was. I could basically tune to it the same way you tune a radio, and dump basically the whatever the signals that are going over that frequency. So if you're doing a site survey or whatever, and you're looking at why, like, is a frequency busy or not? Is there lots of traffic? Because we're in those bands that I was talking about earlier that are public use, those are shared by all manners of devices. Like Bluetooth works over 2.4 gigahertz, but so does wireless, like Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi has, in the States, like there's a centering on the channel 1, channel 6, channel 11, and the bands kind of overlap, but you could just, the band width, which is the width of the band, kind of dumb that down. And so let's say you're in 20 megahertz or 40 megahertz hops, and you can actually see like, okay, how much traffic is, how much signal, what's the signal to noise ratio like on, this band in and of itself. So you can pull just signals out of there. I said, it's just like tuning a radio is the best way I can explain it. I'll shut that off. The other thing that I think I told you about is this, the phone that my buddy manufactures. Oh, sorry. But yeah, this phone is an Obelisk One. It's by an Obsidian Intelligence Group, and it's a hardened Android phone that it has pretty much a lot of functionality that you would get within a laptop, but it's in a phone. it runs a version of Linux. Well, it runs like a penetration testing version of, how would I explain that? Because it is Linux, but it's designed for tablets and phones. It's called Andrax, and so you would use this for in the same way that you would use Kali Linux. I don't know if you're familiar with
I'm not.
that, but it's a distribution that's designed specifically for kind of hacker tasks. But this also supports software-defined radio, so it can do some of the similar things that the Flipper and the Proxmark and the HackRF do. But it's obviously a little more stripped down version just because of the phone itself. But this phone is just available. Like when I go anywhere internationally, this is what I use to tether my communications through. It has a static IP address that's associated with it, so it never changes. So I always know kind of what it's like. If I want to contact it inbound, I know exactly what it's always going to be. But it works pretty much everywhere I go. And I use it to backhaul data, but it's a very, very locked down version of Android, and it only supports secure communications. So there's no, it's all voice over IP. That there's no like regular phone kind of conversation. It's all done, Signal-esque. There's like 3CX and Signal and stuff on here, but I just use it. I said when I'm overseas and I want to make sure that I have a secure internet connection or backhaul, this is my weapon of choice.
What does the single IP address do for you? I don't understand that.
Well, static IP just doesn't change. So most times an IP address is dynamic, which means it'll rotate. Or anybody can kind of come in and take the lease, and so it's not consistent. There's services that you can use that will, every time your IP address changes, it'll automatically map it to a domain. You'll find these no IP services. Netgear routers even have a version of this that they offer their customers, to where you can get a subdomain on or you can set up a domain yourself that just knows to point to that. So you can always type in home.ShawnRyanShow.com and you always get your home computer or whatever. The idea behind that is just if you have, I connect to my home network through a VPN. I have a VPN that's set up on my home network. So if I ever need to access files or I need to look at what's going on my computers, do remote desktop stuff, I have to log in through there. But most of the ISPs, like cable providers, you're going to have a dynamic IP address that's subject to change. Static IP address, again, stays the same all the time, no matter what. So you know what to expect. I mean, I could refresh it if I want to, but that would be something that I would have to initiate myself. Otherwise, I get to keep the same one no matter where I go and what I do. So running services off it, I could actually run, because the way that the internet mapping service works is you have a name, and then that name points to an address the same way your home address would be. But again, if you move, then you need to point that name towards your new address, just like a post office forwarding type thing. But with a static IP address, it just stays consistent. So it's the same address every time. And so you don't need to have it associated with a domain if you don't want to.
So that's just about as close to 100% secure communications as you can get on the civilian market.
I can't there's no outlandish claims that I'll make that it's unhackable or anything, but just for the sake of brevity, I'll say that the way that this has been stripped down and built from the ground up, there isn't any. It's like with Android, a lot of times you'll have a lot of Google threaded in through there, and depending on how you might feel about Google or whatever, there's a lot of telemetry that Android phones wound up sending, invariably debugging reasons, whatever. Some of it is just advertising, tracking, that type of stuff. But a lot of that has been stripped out. So this isn't a phone you would use usability is not what this phone is after. It's more after security. And the slider, the way I always explain it is, if every time you left your house, you had to unlock 7 deadbolts and then lock them up again, and then you realize you forgot your wallet, inside. Well, then you got to unlock 7 deadbolts and you got to, open it. So you do that enough times, it's going to be a hassle. So it's all, the compromise becomes 1 deadbolt. Is that secure enough? I don't know. That's the compromise that you reach, if you want to have a house door, and a block on it. But with respect to this phone, it's not for necessarily for, being running a social media empire or anything like that on, it's completely locked down. There is no Google Play Store, so you have to sideload all the applications that you want to use explicitly. And so it's designed more with the security first rather than usability first, which for most consumer devices is a little bit counterintuitive, but it is for, again, I've been using it for a couple of years, for my rating or whatever, it goes hard. Like I said, I've never had problems with it. So I've been to the UAE, been to Europe, been to Asia, like all over, and said just it works as intended all the time, and haven't had any problems with it. And said the phone itself is hardened to a little degree. Sometimes you get these things like they call them M&Ms, because they're crunchy on the outside and chewy on the inside. This thing tries to be like a jawbreaker, just very
right on.
Yeah, you got to suck and suck and suck unless you want something to happen.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.